All right. Happy Friday night, LinkedIn. Today's show is just a recap of everything that we talked up for during the week. And I'm just going to call it Friday recaps. So we'll be right back after this video as soon as I find it. There it is, right. It's getting there. There we go. I wasn't prepared. I got all these notes. Hey, tonight, I know it's Friday night, right? But I just wanted to go over a recap of the week and just go over some things that I talked about and what we're looking at. The first we discussed this week about the stimulus. Tick-tock, it's over. In Pennsylvania, right here, this is the last week. Candidates get to claim next week, and that's it. So it's over. Starting the following week, we're going to be living the dream. We're going to have all these employees coming right back to work. Don't worry about it. Stimulus is over. And if you believe that, you got another thing coming. Just like I said, it's not over. It's not over for, let's say, in the middle of first quarter. Let's just go that route to see. But we are going to struggle for these next couple of weeks. October 1st. Listen, that's when peak starts, and I can see it already, but don't believe that the stimulus is going to change your life or your staffing. You're going to get maybe about a 2 weeks of jump, about some applications for in the logistics field. But in the middle management and skill set, it doesn't mean nothing. You are going to have a hard time unless you really work as a team. You talk with your management. It's just not going to take one person. It's going to take a team to figure out what you want to do and where you want to go. And as I said before, you don't change the plan. I mean, you change the plan. You don't change the goal. So think about that. You don't change the plan, but don't change the goal. So here he is, Rob. Struggle for the next 3 years. Boy, I couldn't say that right before. Struggle for the next 3 years. It probably is, Rob. But I say that we talked about it earlier this week that, between the child care tax credits, the candidates to find work, they can just jump from one job to another right in a row within a week. They could have 3 jobs. And there's a lot of other things. A lot of people have just left the workforce altogether. They're not going back. They're not doing it. So, I mean, that was one of the shows that we did this week, and I don't know. I don't know what to say about it, but you really need to really rethink things over for peak season coming up, and it's only a couple of weeks away. You are going to work. Those candidates, their employees, they're going to work every single day. They're going to have mandatory overtime. You might as well tell them Merry Christmas, because that's the next time they're going to have off besides Thanksgiving Day. But that was one show, and it really went well. A lot of people responded back with messages to me, and and I appreciate the positive ones, even the negative ones, Rob. I do get them. I don't engage in the negative messages I get. Some are really just pretty darn mean, man, but I don't engage in it. If they feel that way, it's not my problem. It's the way they feel. If that's what they believe, I'm okay with it. This is just my thoughts of the show that we discussed with stimulus, because it was something. One of the next shows that we did we talked about leadership and what it means, and you talk about communication as a leader. Your employees see it. Your employees hear about you. You need to keep everybody honest. Keep everybody as honest as you can in your management team. Don't blow it up their butt. Don't just sit there and sugarcoat it. Candidates, employees will really appreciate that the more honest you are. I say it all the time. Leadership is also part of being honest and communication and telling them in your group meetings where you're at, what you need to get to. You don't change the goal, you change the process. That was close enough for that. Better on that one. But think about it. If you're up there talking as a leader and it's not true, you're saying in your mind and you want them to believe that maybe just for a week because it satisfies you or, sometimes the company and even the staffing companies, just to make it with peak season going through that strong, powerful peak that's coming. All those logistic containers off the shores that can't get in, all the holiday stuff that needs to get out. It is getting so hard to find things, lead, don't manage. And there's Stephanie. Stephanie, you are part of my show here tonight. I was going to get to Stephanie, but let me do it now. If you were looking, we had a show this week or the weekend, and with Stephanie, we talked about resumes, and she really knows what she's doing. If you want to get a resume written, reach out, connect to her right there. I'm telling you, very good at what she does. And the show was number one. That was number one of the week. I got to give it Stephanie. We really hit it out of the ballpark. And the views from social media to this show, LinkedIn Live and YouTube, and that's one of the things I have right here is that was a hot topic. I think we did it on Sunday afternoon, I think. Bad memory today. But that was a topic to talk about. The fallout and when you discuss something like that, you can tell the amount of views. And like I told you before, I don't look, is it great to have a lot of views? Yes. But when you get this many views and that subject between resume writing, I didn't think that to be number one. Usually it's bad bosses, which we're going to talk about, but really reach out to Stephanie, and she's going to be doing a show with me probably next week. We're going to go over some subjects, and that was a great show. That was the start of the week, and we learned a lot. You shred that. She got on there with that sheet, her resume, Rob. Remember Rob? And she shredded Rob's resume. Poor Rob. Stephanie afterwards said, "Boy, that was rough." But Rob, you got to reach out to her and both of you talk. And I know you have, I think. But that was a great show. That was on Sunday, and it started out. And here she goes. She made me cry. She destroyed my resume. When I was talking with Stephanie, some people don't know how to react with them. And I told her when I got mine done, I got more interviews. It was like overnight. And I'm not saying this for everybody, but I'm pretty damn good, man. I was looking at that resume I had redone, and I was like, damn, I didn't know I had that too many. I had a lot of skills. I was like, damn, I sound good. But my point is they know what they're doing. She knows what she's doing, right? She's going to take your resume. She's going to look at it. She's going to represent. Oh, look at that. See, there it is. Lots of laugh. Literally representation of shredding with the intention to help you. And that's what she means right there. And she's there to help you get that interview. During that show, it's the most important. Listen, if your resume stands out and you get that interview, it doesn't always mean you're going to get the job. But that's the main goal, is to get yourself seen and get yourself into that interview. That's the number one. That's where the recruiters should be focusing on that. Rob says, I know, and I really appreciate it. But again, that was a great show. And, reach out and put her up there one more time. Stephanie right there at SPC. Reach out to her about the resumes, and she'll square you away. One of the next shows we did was I was talking about leadership. It was really well. It was about empathy, also caring for your employees, really going out of that extra mile, show them that you care, right? I mean, you get a lot of You get a lot of candidates when you have especially in logistics, and you have, the big A's and big W's, and you have like 1,000 employees in under one roof. We talked about it's very, very hard because people feel they're like a number, which we talked about that, and I get it. But you have such a point system that we talked about that it's kind of hard to really care and show you care about someone in a way that, I mean, without letting them go. Because if that employee already has, say, 3 points, and then something really just happens on top of that takes it over. Listen, that's where I believe I got a lot of feedback from this one, that maybe if they didn't utilize all the problems that they had before, the call offs and everything. But there comes a time in human resources that I've said that you have to look at the situation. No, I'm going to hear it again, but you have to look at the situation. When you got so many employees and you only have like 3 HR reps, they don't even sometimes know you. And it's not their fault. They're so busy doing everything else we talked about that they don't have time to see who you are. Human resources are so busy. They're overworked. I say it all the time. I'm standing up for human resources because they shouldn't be in staffing. There he is. Hey, Bernard, how's it going, sir? Bernard, always another good connection to reach out to. But human resources should not be in recruiting. They did not go to college to be a recruiter. They go for, I know Daryl, I got feedback from Daryl. Daryl was saying they're right, to go after all the laws and, the regulations and make sure they're followed. But they're also there to help you. And we talked about that with human resources. You need to go if you're having a problem, right? You need to nip it in the butt, kind of. And I say that because I've learned it. When you let something go on and on and on and on, right, and it's wrong and you're not doing anything, listen, you'll just brush it off and, well, maybe it'll stop. It doesn't. It'll come back as a leader and bite you. And that's why I always say, listen, go to your supervisor. And this is where we talked about the supervisor cannot solve the problem. If you feel that you've gone to your lead, you've gone to the management team, and they're not fixing the situation, maybe you're having an issue with an employee or something, harassment, something, go to human resources. That's what they are there for you. They're not there. I always joke around saying, hey, they're not calling you in the office. Whenever you see human resources calling in, I would always be like, oh, shit. I'm sorry. I'll be like, oh, man. I said, what do I do now? Because they never just say, call you in. Hey, Dave, you're doing a great job, right? But I joke about that. But seriously, nowadays, go to them. They have an open door policy. Listen, the human resources has to be biased. They have to be on both sides. You might not always like the outcome because they have to listen to both sides of the story. They do an investigation. That's the biggest part. Because if your management team didn't do that investigation, that will come out. They will know what employees to pull in the office. They have cameras. They see everything that's going on. And that's where they can help you because they're not there to scare you. They're there to solve the problem. Because if they don't know it's broke, they can't fix it, right? So if you don't tell them, a human resources director will say, well, come on, why didn't you tell me? Why did you quit? Or you went and seek counsel. You've done this, you've done everything. You went to their doctor. You were stressed. In my personal experience, I've told people before, I went through that. And would I go through it again? No. It'll never happen again because I should have went to even human resources earlier. Because it's not that you're guilty of anything like that. If you feel strong that you've had an issue that's done you wrong, hey, that rhymed, go. All right. So that was one of the discussions that we did on the show for the week. And walk the talk. If you're up there saying you're a leader and you're saying we're going to do this, we're going to do that, and you don't do it, the employees know that. They know it. We talked about bad bosses. Stephanie, that's one we should bring up. And Rob, right? Bad bosses. How do you say it? Listen, if you got a micromanager, or if you got somebody that is giving you problems, and again that you're not doing anything wrong, it's them. Don't bottle it up. If that boss, if all of a sudden you're just getting, you're put on that, we talked about being put on the PIP. You know, PIP PIPs are actually good if they're utilized correctly, right? PFPs. You go in there and they give you a plan. Say you can figure something out. They're going to put you on a PIP. Majority of the time, when people say that, the management, they're trying to get rid of you. Not always. We talked about if you really do, if a good boss is, and again, I keep going back to experience, but been there, done it. You know, you have an issue. You know that the company is right about ready to push you out, and they put you on that. They need to give you a set plan, right? And it does work. Listen to me. A PIP is not a bad, because when I was, you're told to do this, 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 and you get to that point, you're taken off, and it really helps you. Again, if it's followed correctly, your HR follows it, and your manager that's not trying to get rid of you. Because sometimes we've said it, management doesn't want you. I've told people before, they say manage them out. I mean, that word, when I brought that up, manage them out, what does that mean? It means that they're going to put a lot of pressure on you. They're going to, and not all companies do this. Let me say that respectively. This is not just one-sided. A lot of companies are really great when I want to say this, but this is just we talk on the show all the time about just issues that people want to do, but it always is kind of on the negative side, not always a positive, but there are great companies with that. Bad bosses need to have their own accountability when they need improvement instead of auto-pipping employees. And Stephanie, the way you said that is true, because they might not know how to do it. Some of the bosses might not have done that job. That's why I like growth. I like growth when you join a company and you work your way up, because you have done that job. It's like myself, when I worked myself way up through the company, up to market manager and all that good stuff, branch, right? I knew the jobs. I knew all the jobs prior. Even my other company, when I worked myself way up, you know it, you've been there, you've lived it. So you kind of know what the problem is. Some of the bosses that come in have never done it before, and they think that their way is going to change it, except they're not talking and reaching out with their team. When they walk in there, listen, this is my place now, I'm going to change this. They'll sit back. Hey, listen, a good boss will sit back when they're first going into a new job, and they're going to see what's going on. They're watching. I would. You're going to watch, see how things go. You're going to see what types of the day, part of the day, what people are doing, what your team, and you're going to write things down. You're going to see little things that you might want to bring up. So then that's where you want to do. You don't want to bombard your employees with so much stuff when you want to change. When you want to change the process, don't bombard them. Don't do 1, 2, 3, 4 right here. And you got to give people to react. Let them, if you're going to make a change, talk to your team on why you're doing the change. Don't just get up there and say, well, we're going to do this, and don't give a reason. That might have flown a while ago, but not now. Let them have input. If you let them have input, right? If you let your employees have a little bit of input in there, knowing now what I know, I would have been even more successful myself. The reason when I talk about these things, and because again, respectively, I've been there, and when you lived it, I knew where I was going wrong on some things, and then I corrected it as my career went up. You kind of learn within time and experience. So that there led into the next show of the hiring practices. And it comes down to, like Stephanie, almost the same thing with the thing. The hiring processes. We had a show this week about talking about how to make it easier. I mean, a lot of people on job boards, right? Indeed, Gribble, or all those great ones, right? Well, you got to fill out this. Upload your resume, then you got to write your resume over there. It might not match. Then when you go in there and you click to apply, then it says go to the website. You go to the website. You're trying to look up the whole thing. Let's see. Bernard had a question first. I still don't understand why companies keep the bad bosses. Is it more of a liability to keep them than let them go? No, we had a show on that, and I'm going to tell you why, Bernard. I strongly believe nowadays, again, maybe pre-COVID, even before that, I say it, but when you look at reviews, and I know, and exit interviews, I know people are going to say exit reviews don't work. They can work in a different way. Does everybody do them? I didn't. I didn't do exit interviews. Should I have? Yes. Maybe after a while. Once you calm down, once you get breathe, right? 2-3 weeks, then send it in, because your emotions take over, and you just want to get away from that boss. Even you don't want to tell anybody about that boss, because you might think it's going to burn you when you've been with the company for 5 years, and then they let you go. And what do you do? Right? What do you do? Do you say that my boss was bad? Do you go into another company and say, well, why'd you get let go? I quit because I didn't like the boss. How's that sound? Try doing that on an interview. It's I wanted, I tell people that, and I like how he posted this. I tell them all the time that you need to speak up in a way, like if you were let go, it's in an interview process. Listen, when you're doing an interview, everybody knows why you're there. If you were laid off, it's different, but everybody knows that good feeling when you're just going to get a new job and you get to live that feeling for about 2 weeks, then that changes. But back to his point about keeping the bosses, upper management needs to just cut ties with them. If you have employees that are leaving on that person's shift, if they're leaving reviews about that shift, if they're complaining to the HR and nobody's doing anything about that management, you need to change. You need to terminate them. And it's not, listen, Pennsylvania here, it's at will. They don't need to give you a reason. They can just let you go. It's always good to kind of work with them. But hey, oh my God, hey Bill, holy crow, how's it going, sir? Long time. But Stephanie's right here. You're right. Tenure, politics, and red tape. I couldn't say it better, Stephanie. Tenure, you've been there for a while. Politics, there's certain things at the workplace you do not talk about. And the red tape to get rid of that person. And all I can say is, if anybody was on part of my team, that a management, and as a leader, and I know Bill will say this, as a leader, you need to address that supervisor, you need to address that lead, and you change their behavior. First, you try to change their behavior. Simple, just like it sounds. Pull them in, talk to them, and say, listen, we've had a lot of complaints, and they can give you all the excuses that they want. Oh, well, they do. Still, if you feel that they're just being cocky and ignorant, it's my way or the highway, just end them. Don't even waste time as a good manager, leader. If you don't get them, put them on a PIP and then get rid of them, because they can put a bad manager that we talked about can really put pressure on people to go to the doctors for stress, can cause you problems with your family, can problems with your kids even, everything outside of work. You don't sleep. You take walks, you're stressed, you just go off, you're short-ended at home, not at work, because you're afraid of losing your job. But again, to end that subject is, as Bernard is, they need to go to the HR and report the manager, and they should be held accountable. And if they were leaving, I'd get rid of them. We talked about, we had a show also. Yep, they'll just talk to each other all night long. They go back and forth, but they're all good on this show. Everybody connects to each other, and Stephanie does a lot of great resumes. If you saw that show, to anybody that needs resume writing, she does it great. Then we talked about the job postings, and we talked about that management should have upward feedback too. It's not fair that it's top down only. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I agree. They need to. I know what you're saying. They're in the middle, yes, and they need to go up. If they're having problems, they need to be held accountable up top. If that's what I believe, that's what you're saying, and it makes sense, because if you're in the middle management and you're having problems and you know what the problems are, and you're telling your supervisors upper management and they're not responding, they're just as guilty. They're going to have a harder time getting rid of them. Or I shouldn't say it like that. That's just my wording. Changing their behavior, change management. I think that's one of the new sayings right now is change management. But I say that the upper management is to be held accountable. It just rolls down. That's the way it is. Chain of command rolls down. We talked about that. It just goes down the hill. And they're just as responsible for, we talked on the job boards here, is Listen, all the management, we talked about that, is some of the job postings were horrible. Some were 3, 4 pages long. Some of them, wow. I tell you what, if you met all those skills, Bill, I tell you what, if you met some of these, I have been looking at some of these job postings just to learn. And wow, I don't get it. I get tired of reading it because it's all like a book. I'm like, man, you don't even know what that means. They're like, wait a minute, how in the world did preach it? But it's the truth. I printed out a job description today from a company, and I wanted to see. I wish I had here with me. It was one full page and turned it over, and it met a half. It had no bullet points. It was written, and I kept saying, what the heck? And I was like, well, maybe a recruiter wasn't taught well. See, I don't blame that on the recruiter, whoever's posting the jobs. I always say if they're posting the jobs and you're higher up, you're the next level, you should be your regional director or anything like that. But you should be looking at these job postings and looking on the social media job postings, because it comes down to you. Maybe the recruiter doesn't have the skill. Listen, some of the recruiters, you go on LinkedIn right now, I'm telling you, it might just be me, but I think there's more recruiter positions than there are regular jobs. I mean, every single one, work remote. We're hiring 6, we're hiring 8. We need you to work remote. I'll tell you, there's a lot of work at home, I guess. So Stephanie says, I spend under 5 minutes reading job recs, have to focus on the scale. All right. You've been reading the book. You're hitting it tonight. You're hitting really some good one. Everybody is. And that's exactly, you got to focus on the scale. Wait a minute here. I spent 5 minutes reading job recs, have to focus on the scale. I believe when you talk about a scale, whether it outweighs, that's what I'm thinking, because I've talked about that before, Stephanie. I always focus, negative, positive, and then that's how I make my decisions. But I'm hoping that's what you mean. So, but look at the job descriptions. If you're within the company and you see that posting, we talked about it, just to say, hey, where'd you get that friggin' job posting? Well, because I told you years and years and years ago, I did copy and paste. I said that on the show. But if you weren't taught, right, there we go. Okay. Scale equals high volume. All right. You said it in a different way. That was good. Scale equals high volume. We've got to try to figure that one out. You're going to make me think after this. But, look at the tools, look at the job postings, and talk to your team. They might not know how to do it correctly. I copied and pasted years ago because nobody really showed me. Post a job. Oh yeah, you have to have this word in it, right? Material handler. If you don't have that, you're not going to get anybody. Keywords back then. But after being on with Stephanie and all these people on LinkedIn, they can really show you some serious things. Listen, if you stay on LinkedIn and follow the right people, that's all I've done. I've had a lot of people right here on the show. I've only learned from them. I mean, I've had Bill on the show. I've had Stephanie. Rob, we got to get you on the show. Bernard, we got to get you on there. But they're the ones where I've learned from. They're the experts, not me. I got to rely on them to be able to tell my employees or tell anybody I'm working with what it is. And how'd you learn it? Simple. From an expert. Or YouTube. You don't want to do that. But that was one of the shows. The other shows was that was resumes. We talked about that. Bias. I'm sorry. We talked about bias. I've heard it more and more. One of the great shows that we did was about bias, about age. Some people worry about their age. Listen, I'll tell anybody, I'm 55. I don't care. I'm pretty good for 55. But my point there is people that I've interviewed say, well, I didn't get the job because I think of my age. In your 50s, you're not that old. But, again, it takes it back to the recruiters. I don't know why. Does age have issues? Bias? Yes. Ageism? Definitely. I'm not going to deny that. I think you're going to have that everywhere. You're just going to have to hit that right recruiter. Or that right position. I wish I knew how to say to you how you could cure that, but you can't. How you could fix it. I just believe, listen, I believe if you're older, experienced, I think you need to come across really powerful, really energetic, really represent yourself well. Practice on that interviews, man. Sit there and look in this damn little white dot I'm looking at up there, right? Practice it. Show your experience. Say you do this, you do that. Give them examples of what you do. Half of the time when you give them an example, they're probably not even gonna know what you're talking about. Because the recruiters, there's so many that are not trained, but there really are some good recruiters that will follow up with you, will take you through that entire process. They will not ghost you. And when it comes down to telling you that you didn't get the job, they're very professional at doing it. And I'd rather do it that way than ghost them. But the bias, that's the last show. The bias, the way you look, people say, well, I think the way I look, I mean, people are going to judge. I mean, I think anybody on this show, Dave, you're younger than me. I think companies would have an older experienced guy nowadays, at least in sales. All right, I'm going to respond to that. Yes and no. I'm going to give you an example. Lowe's, right? You would always go to Lowe's, and in the beginning of Lowe's, it was hard to find somebody that was really experienced within. You were doing plumbing or anything. You needed parts. I had to talk to an 18-year-old or 20-some-year-old, right? That really didn't know much. Then they went through a phase where now all of a sudden they started bringing people in with experience. If we want to say older, but you could really walk up to someone and ask them, do you know about this? And they could tell you right there what happened, how to fix it, how to do it, because I still consider that like a sales because they're selling you a part, but they have the experience. So I think if an older, experienced guy learns both, right? You need old school. You need old school just like you need up to date now, like sales. I love sales and social media, Bill, right? I mean, you know me. I mean, I love sales doing it that way. Do I like knocking on the doors? No, you can't do it anymore. No solicitation, right? So you have to think of different ways. But people are going to know if you know about your job. When you just talk, like Bill, when we had you on the show and we talked about all the skilled trades, we need stuff like that. But then you need people to teach them. If you don't have the people with the experience, when you go to a trade school, like an electrician that's been doing it for 30 years, or HVAC technician, you're not going to be teaching HVAC at 25. I mean, you got to go to school, or you're going to on the job training, but you got to go with that experience. So that's where I look at, for that. I love social media for sales and old school, knocking on doors, flyers. Everything's working now, Bill, because with COVID, you got to do both. I've always said, when you do social media and you do all the new stuff and you mix it with grassroots, put them together, you're going to win. It's a fact. There's nobody that can say anything different. You're going to win. Some people brought up the languages, where you live, demographics. Again, people with medical problems, disabilities. You can't. You don't want to look past anybody. It's illegal anyway. With Disabilities Act, you need to give everybody the review. The interviews. And listen, if people, I know everybody talks about the bias on the show. If people really don't want to like you, or they don't like the way you look, they don't like the way you talk, that's their problem. Let's see this one. Today I was told I would not be submitted to the job unless I gave my year of graduation. Then I was told that a bachelor's degree with some experience is preferred over 20 years of experience. What has happened to the seasoned people and vital contributors to the team? Boom. That right there, you hit it. If they did that, if they said of graduation, I have never asked a candidate that kind of question before. Never said, hey, what that it would be. Listen, that I don't know, but that don't sound right to me. That's not a question that you can ask. You're not supposed to ask about age, being married, kids. How many kids do you have? Because people think if you say you have 4 kids, they're going to think, well, she's not going to come to work, or he, because the child gets sick. There's all different kind of things that can put here, but bachelor's degree with some experience. Whew. This is what I talk about on the one show is You need to hire. Nowadays, I'm telling you, you got to hire. I don't know if it's people are afraid that you're smarter or you're better at that. The way I'm looking at it now, I want to hire a team that's kind of even better than me in a way, that knows the job, because they're going to make me as a leader look well. They're going to make me look good. Why would I want somebody to on my team that I have to train? Listen, they've got to that position for some reason. 20 years experience, like you're saying. Wow. I see it whenever I go to CareerLink. I see there everybody's that's in the one, the professionals that lost their jobs. I look at it and say, wow, look at all that money. Cha-ching. Look at all that experience. And I thought, wow, you could sell them. You could sell the experience. But you're right. I mean, it needs to be addressed with some of the companies. And I really like that post there. That was pretty good. Bill, I like this. In my sales career, I have contacts across the country. Was key to my success for many years. Need to do a hybrid of sales call, phone, website. Yeah, I agree. Need to do a hybrid of sales calls, phone, web, and on-site. Exactly. I think he hit it right there. Is you got to have with the connections and, like he's saying, the contacts. It's the way to go. I mean, you still need the sales calls, use the phone, web, and on-site. I think you're correct there. You need all that to be successful. There's not just one tool now. Now, if you would ask me that 2 years ago, prior to COVID, I would have argued and said, no. Social media was the way to go. But you know what? I was wrong. I think it took COVID to really knock me back and say, Dave, you need both. And I like how he says that. And then I agree here also what Bill says. That's not a proper question. If you were asked that, you don't have to say anything on here, but wow, that's one hell of a question. And that brings it to one of the last subjects here is ghosting. I posted a job today, and it was decent qualified. The other candidate wasn't as qualified, and I still want to turn the resume in. I still believe in that. As long as they meet 50%, 50 to 60, I go by that. The education, I look at the experience also. When I look at resumes now, there's something that goes to me is when I see they've been at a job for tenure. That's always good, because that means they've come to work on time. They've done it. They've been there for 10, 15 years. Something happened. 20 years, something happened in their career. And it's not really something you want to ask. You don't have to say well, you've been 20 years. You can ask that question. Why did you leave, or what happened? I don't put that candidate in that position, because I don't feel it's a good one, because I don't think it's any of my business to ask them. You got 20 years here. You either knew something went wrong, or they were laid off, or something like that. Now, if you're laid off, hey, there's nothing wrong with that. But I don't get into all that. I don't think it's possible, needed to do that. The ghosting, you need to reach out to the candidates, especially if you've done 2 to 3 resumes, interviews. I'm sorry, 2 to 3 over and over and over, 2 to 3, and you don't respond back. Think about the opposite way, how you would feel when you've done your job search. Now, Bill, you've been in your profession for a long time, but it would be the same way. If you were to lose your job after you got a lot of years in sales, how do you think you would do in interviews? And it's no different. When I had to go back and start doing interviews again, I'm like, oh, Jesus, I've been doing friggin' thousands of them, and here I am friggin' interviewing again. And that feeling of knowing and waiting, you're waiting a week, and then you're waiting 2 weeks, and you've emailed. The last thing I want to talk about is that hard discussion. Those recruiters for ghosting need to have that hard discussion, that difficult conversation of saying, you know what, Bill, we really liked your resume. I think you really did well on the interview, but we went with another candidate, and I think it's because of we kind of chose for this reason. But we really want to help you, and please reach back out to us. I like stuff like that. Not a proper question for. I think that was before. But on closing, have those hard conversations as a recruiter. It gets easier and easier each time when you get back to that candidate and say they weren't chosen, but give them a good reason why. Now, sometimes with the staffing companies, I'll tell you right there, if you've submitted, if I've made a submittal, I feel they're really well, and the client says no, and I ask why. What? If they can't give me an answer, I just go back to that candidate and I say the same thing, and they say why, and I'm like, I tried to ask for you, I don't know, and that there, I'm going to end it on that. But really, if you are in recruiting, have that hard conversation. Call that if you've gone through first interview, second interview, and you don't call them and just send a bomb email, that's on you. That needs to change on a lot of people, and maybe they're not told that. But I'd rather have a recruiter reach out to me by phone after 2 interviews and say, you know what, Dave, we just didn't choose you. We went with someone else, and it's okay. You might say, well, what does this person have? And that's normal. But maybe that other person was just slightly something else that they were looking for. Now, maybe you had 20 years experience, and I'm only thinking of something negative wise. I mean, that's hard to do with a bachelor's and say that. Versus one software, you can say that, but that's not right, because a person with experience can learn the new softwares that they're putting out from schools. And so I don't really know how to answer that 100%. So on that note, I want to thank everybody for coming on tonight. And Stephanie, I'll be in touch. And again, reach out for Stephanie for resumes. Bill's great contact for sales, for trade schools. He loves all that. Bernard, we're going to get you on the show. Rob, we're going to get Rob on the show one time. You know what? We're going to have a group session, and we're going to bring Rob on. I think that'll be a lot of fun, and we're going to put him on the spotlight. So everybody have a great weekend. I will be back on Sunday night, so enjoy your weekend. Talk to you soon. Oh, it's right. Happy holidays weekend, right? Labor Day on Monday. We're working, so it's all right. It's part of the deal. When you work for a company, they say you got to work for a holiday. It sucks, but you got to do what you're told. So talk to you soon.